So, welcome to everyone to consider my class here, the course that I'm going to be offering. And this course is basically going to be a cultural, intellectual, spiritual history of what has generally been called Western civilization. Um, uh, Sometimes it's called the North Atlantic civilization, but in some ways it's locally focused on the European tradition that is especially rooted in ancient Greece, the Greco-Roman origins, and then, but also the Judeo-Christian played such a huge role as well. It's these two root streams, and of course, the Judeo-Christian comes out of the what we now call the Middle East, and these come together in European civilization and shape the whole cultural tradition that those of us who are have European ancestry have been deeply informed by right in our roots, but also you, the entire world now is being influenced by what came through this particular cultural, intellectual, spiritual tradition. Um, and so we'll be covering, starting with ancient Greece, also the origins of Christianity in ancient Israel, and how those come together in the later Roman Empire, particularly through a figure like Augustine. Then we go through the European Middle Ages, the medieval period, to the High Middle Ages, the great period of the cathedrals and the brilliant scholastic philosophers like Thomas Aquinas. And then we move into the huge uh, burst that brings modernity in, the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, which starts particularly with Copernicus and the heliocentric um, theory that just completely changed our cosmology. And out of that unfolds the Enlightenment, which in many ways is the continuing frame of reference and sets of assumptions that shape the modern mind. But it's also been complemented by, and in a sense compensated by, Romanticism, which emerges in the later 18th century into the 19th century. Um, uh, Figures like Wordsworth, Coleridge, Blake in Keats, Shelley, etc. in England, but in Germany, it's people like Goethe and Schelling and Hegel in a sense, uh, but particularly the great poets and idealistic philosophers coming out of German idealism and Romanticism, and that uh, you can in certain ways see the modern mind and soul as being a kind of combination of that kind of tension of opposites between the rationalist Enlightenment and the more soul-oriented romantic stream. And then most recently, over the last, I'd say, 130 years or so, we have what is largely roughly referred to as the emergence of a more postmodern sensibility, much more complex, ambiguous, fluid, pluralistic, shaped by multiculturalism, by feminism, by critiques of rationalist dominance of the modern mind and so forth, and also of Western civilization. Um, and of course the tremendous transformation that's been brought about by depth psychology, coming out of whether it's William James, Freud, Nietzsche, and the origins, but then particularly Jung, um, and beyond. And so that's played a big role. And maybe I'll also mention the importance of the what's sometimes called the Green Revolution, but it's just the ecological awakening of the last 60 years, and the crisis that we're in globally in terms of the biosphere, because that has also been very much constellated by an approach to the world that the Western mind, and the modern mind in particular, has lived according to, promoted, and shaped the planetary biosphere according to, and we're now dealing with the consequences. So that's the history. There's a nobility to it and a shadow to it. And to understand both of those with kind of equal clarity, uh, sympathy or empathy at the same time, because this draws on our capacity for a sympathetic imagination, to enter into. That's partly what we're going to be doing, is enter into each of these um, epochs and worldviews, because that's the only way you understand them. If you immediately judge them from our perspective now, you're not living it through the way they what they were faced with, and how they were thinking. And we really want to follow this journey, which is a kind of a heroic epic, as well as a tragic one, um, and a noble one, with many virtues, qualities, values that are precious to us today, as well as shadow sides that we can see perhaps more clearly today than ever before. So that's the that's the focus of this course, and we'll be using the book I wrote called The Passion of the Western Mind, which was written very much according to the basic principles and frame of reference that I just described. So that's what we're covering in this course.